Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the UFO cast as Captain Scarlet, codename Europa. We're on to the home straight now, disc 4 of the Blu-ray set, the final 8 episodes. And here's another one that, at least as far as my spreadsheet goes, I had a question mark over prior rating because I couldn't remember it. Which isn't entirely true, it was just that the episode title didn't mean anything to me. What is memorable about this episode from when I was a kid is the whole opening sequence with Professor Carney fiddling with his gadget and then being shot by Captain Black. So that much was memorable. I had forgotten, to be honest though, what the Mistron target was and quite what it was that Carney did. The scene of him clipping the clips onto the fence and then cutting through, again, for some reason, sticks in my head. And then once things started to unfold with the speakers in the wood, I was like, oh yeah, okay, fine. And that then reminded me of the new one of the episode where he's moving through the dark with his night vision goggles on. So various things to say about this one. It's a good one. I enjoy it, largely. Quite how the world is governed in 2068 is interesting. They do refer to the fact that there's the world president who, obviously, the Mistrons tried to kill in episode 1, and then we had the Asian Federation dude who they killed in episode 2. I'm trying to remember now if there are any other political figures that are targeted between then and now. Obviously, we've had various military targets, but now we have the Triumvirate of Europe, who are the 3 most powerful men in the world, aside from the world president, Olafsson, Henderson, and Mancini. Mancini, who doesn't even feature in the end. The episode is not long enough for the Mistron agent to have a go at all 3 of them. We kind of feel there's a slight weakness, but I guess 25 minutes isn't really long enough to have 3 separate stories, as it were. So let's deal with the first one. I guess there's a parallel here to the first episode, the Mistrons, in that they stick him in a bunker under a building and the Mistrons try and blow him up. Again, unsuccessfully, and then we have I don't know, he was coming to shoot the guy at the end, wasn't he? But a similar thing, we've got Spectrum agents putting somebody in a maximum security location and the Mistrons trying to break in. And I suppose this is one of the interesting things about this episode. Prior to this, I would say that most Mistron agents become Mistron agents because of who they are. Well, I suppose Professor Carney becomes a Mistron agent because of who he is, but it's more who they are in relation to who's going to get killed. So, for example, you have, I don't know why Renegade Rocket is springing to mind, but he becomes Mistron agent because he has access to the base that they want to use a missile from. Okay, so far so good. Just a couple of episodes, Place of Angels, she becomes a Mistron agent because she has access to the biological weapon that they want to release. Avalanche, Eddie becomes a Mistron agent because he's the one that has access to all the bases and so on and so forth. This one, the Mistrons choose somebody who has the skills that they want, which is interesting because largely that's been irrelevant in the past. The Mistrons have taken somebody over because of their position, and then the Mistrons have equipped them to do their job. Whereas in this case, the Mistrons have chosen some targets, but rather than Mistronize somebody close to any of those targets, they've gone, we're going to select somebody because he already has the skills in electronics, and we're going to basically get him to do the mission, which is interesting. And it reminded me, to some extent, of Joe 90. There's almost a prototype for that here. In Joe 90, you have something needs to be done, and they select somebody whose brain pattern they can put into Joe. And in this, the Mistron's like, well, we want to kill these dudes, so we're going to pick an electronics expert because he's the best person who's going to be equipped to get past the maximum security of these buildings, which I thought was interesting and something fresh, I suppose, with the series. As I said at the beginning, we are on the home stretch now. I'm not going to say they're running out of plots, but I think lots and lots of things have been done now with the format. So that was nice. I mean, it's not dated very well. I remember watching this as a kid in the 90s, and his electronic gadget was quite exciting. The idea that you could have this little gadget you'd hold in your hand and dial things in and press buttons, and it didn't seem particularly relevant that, like, you had to kind of have a working knowledge of what all the numbers meant in your head. But obviously now it's very quaint, and you would have a touch screen, and you would swipe and you would type, and all these things would happen. I mean, still, most people don't have a drinks trolley that comes to them when they call it, but most of the things that his keypad does have been superseded. I was in a hotel recently, for example, where there was a button by my bed that I could press and the curtains would open and close. Ooh, exciting. I don't think it does really anybody any good to criticise visions of the future. Like, any vision of the future is going to date the further away you get from when it was thought up. And we are now over 50 years post Captain Scarlet, so I'm prepared to forgive it that. So yeah, an enjoyable episode. The weakness of the SPV being thrown out as well. What happens if you can't see your TV screen? You feel that, like, the SPV should have, for safety, should have a more mechanical way of seeing forwards. Mirrors, perhaps. You wonder why the Mysterons haven't exploited that weakness before, but hey. And they probably won't do it again. So again, the whole War of Nerves thing continues. It is still very much a game for the Mysterons, and they are having fun, keeping Spectrum on their toes. So, what are we watching out for? Well, as ever, the DVD and VHS order. Again, similar. DVD has this at 28, the VHS 31, so the penultimate episode on VHS, whereas, as I say, this one is just coming into that home straight. New Mysteron powers. I suppose there aren't any, other than to repeat that it's a fresh strategy from the Mysterons, I suppose, in going about what they do in the way that they do. Mysteron's still at large. No, Carney is very much dead at the end of this. Is it a win or a loss? Well, Spectrum very much win, I think. They lose a building, but that's about it. And if you head over to the Mysteron Puppet Gallery on ufocast.co.uk, Professor Carney has been added. So that's another good episode, I would say, in a row. Next week, something of a comedy, if I recall correctly, and a very enjoyable episode, Flight to Atlantica, so join me for that.